And if the universities were set up like guilds, the most significant and important guild in universities of the Middle Ages had a name: the Scholastics. The Scholastics were a group of scholars who wanted to apply human reason, logic, and Greek philosophy to support and at times to prove Christian doctrine and the tenets of the Christian faith. In the same manner, the church father Augustine had reconciled Platonic philosophy with the Christian worldview, so the scholastics, and chief among these scholastics was Thomas Aquinas, were famous with reconciling Aristotelian philosophy with Christianity. The Greek philosopher Aristotle had slowly filtered back into medieval Europe through Arabic translations and commentaries that had been produced in cities in Islamic Spain like Cordova, Toledo, and Palermo, and from Islamic scholars like Averroes and Avicenna. Oddly enough, scholars translated these Arabic translations of Aristotle into Latin before they were translated from the original Greek, as most of those Greek manuscripts were still hidden away in a monastery somewhere in Constantinople or elsewhere in the Byzantine Empire. The efforts of these translators are all the more significant considering how controversial Aristotle was when his works first reemerged in Western Europe. Aristotle actually had a disruptive effect similar to that of the British naturalist Charles Darwin would have later during the 19th century in Victorian England. Aristotle, seemingly by the powers of his own reason and seemingly without knowledge of the Hebrew scriptures, had come up with a fairly attractive proof for the existence of God, and Aristotle had also written so extensively on nearly every area of life that Aristotle's body of writing was practically a university education in itself. So how fallen was man really if man could ascend to the heights that Aristotle did? The scholastics endeavored to reconcile Aristotle's thought with Christian doctrine. This resulted in giving a high place to man's reason, the means by which individuals can study the stars and solve problems and do things no other animals can do because we are ultimately made in God's image. The belief that all human beings everywhere are image bearers and as such reflect significant aspects of God's goodness, rationality, and creativity is one of the most important tenets of the Christian faith and subsequently an important tenet of a classical education. Reason is capable of discovering some truths, indeed many truths, since all people are made in God's image, but reason is unable to save itself or to lead itself in a meaningful way to God. For this, man needs revelation from God, which man may perceive through faith in order to be saved. Of the importance of faith, the scholastic Thomas Aquinas wrote, "In order that men might have knowledge of God, free of doubt and uncertainty, it was necessary for divine truth to be delivered to them by way of faith, being told to them as it were by God himself, who cannot lie." In contrast to later intellectual movements like the Enlightenment and its French philosophers, the scholastics did not think that reason could accomplish anything and everything on its own. Instead, the scholastics placed limits on the use of reason and the kinds of ideas that the human mind can discover. Reason and faith are not contrary to each other, but reason is in fact subordinate to faith and needs the insights gained by reading God's revelation of himself if reason is to really flourish. In addition, the scholastics subjected texts and ideas to the rigorous logical analysis Aristotle lays out in works like the Organon and the kind of intellectual scrutiny found in the Socratic method and Plato's dialogues. These intellectual tools served as the basis for scholastic debates, which still constitute a vital component of a classical education today. The scholastics would begin with a question and a relatively simple, perhaps the most accepted answer, but this answer was then refuted in favor of a point that better answered the question originally stated. Now, the scholastics could agree to play by these rules, and applied these exacting standards to their intellectual debates because all of them were aiming towards the truth and wanted to communicate in an intelligible, meaningful way what that truth is. The scholastics delighted in the pursuit of what is true, what is good, and what is beautiful, and their love of the truth subsumed their desire, which all of us have, simply to win an argument. We can certainly learn much from the scholastics' example.